All right, there we go. We've got lots of people starting to join us. Welcome, welcome. Good morning, everyone. Really pleased to have you with us here today. As you do join us, please go ahead in the chat. I can see lots of familiar names here. So you're probably familiar with the drill, but as you join us, please go to the chat and let us know your role and the organization that you're with. Let's see who we have joining us from. There we go. And it should say everyone as well. So just make sure that you have that setting enabled as well. Lots of people coming in. Wow, good morning, good morning. Good to have you all with us. Again, as you join, just go ahead and let us know in the chat your role and the company you are with. I'll get us started. People continue to flood in. Good morning, good morning. Welcome. Very pleased to have you with us. Lots of familiar names in the room. Good to see some of those names rejoining. Please let us know in the chat if you can, in fact, or maybe someone from the CFO South Africa team can let us know. You should be able to type in the chat, although I'm not seeing anything come in just yet. So again, just go ahead, let us know your role and company, please. Looks like we have everyone selected, so I'm not sure why that's not coming in. Okay. I wonder. All right, all good. Well, welcome everyone. Really pleased to have you with us here this morning. As you can be prepared, you know that we're going to have a really exciting and engaging conversation this morning. And it's all about maximizing our resources that we have available to us. So you were probably expecting Georgie here this morning. You would have received all the emails in the build-up. And I'm going to be hosting and conducting this session here this morning. You might be familiar with me. I'm an associate of CFO South Africa. My name is John Dean, and I'm really excited to be working with everyone here this morning. So yeah, welcome, welcome. Again, if you are able to put a comment in the chat, let us know your role, please, and then your organization as well. So in today's session, as you can see over on our slide, this is going to be focusing all around every CFO's foolproof guide to future hosted. And this is a partnership between CFO South Africa and Xero. And in today's fast-paced financial landscape, having accurate information at our disposal is obviously crucial for our success. And one of the most potent assets in our CFO toolkit is being able to kind of access that data and information in real time. You know, we need to be able to accurately reveal our current financial positions. And when we're able to do that, it's going to paint like a very clear and a very vivid picture of our business's current state, of course. And it's going to provide us with those invaluable insights into what we need to thrive, both in the current and, of course, upcoming in the future as well. So we know that last year's financial statements is kind of yesterday's news. And even if they took a year to prepare, but now, most importantly, it's time for us to go ahead and embrace the power of the present and, most importantly, the future as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen. We've got four very esteemed panelists, or three very esteemed panelists this morning. I'm going to go ahead and introduce each person. So please, as we introduce you, please come on audio and video. Let's just make sure that our technology is working, okay? So Philip Funzel from Cloud Integr8, please could you come on audio and video? Let's test that that's working okay for you. Welcome.
Hi, John. Thanks a million.
There we go. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you with us. And Sulene Botha is also joining us as the CFO from SimpleBook. Sulene, could we test your audio as well?
Morning, everyone.
There we go. Coming through loud and clear. Thank you so much. And then last, we have Alan Gibbon, who is the CFO over at Larasoft as well. So welcome, Alan.
Hi, everyone. Good to be with you.
There we go. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, in our conversation this morning, everyone's going to be sharing some sort of tips and examples of how we can go about harnessing the full potential of cutting-edge online and integrated systems. Now, this is going to help us inform and make some really sort of timely decisions that is really going to make a difference for all of us. So without much further ado, let's get down to the program. So Philip would like to call on you just to kind of go ahead and set the scene for us. And perhaps whilst you're doing that, if we could just jump off camera, so Alan and Sulene, we can go ahead and turn our cameras off, and then we'll give the stage to you. All yours. Over to you, Philip.
Yeah, thanks, John. So before we have a panel discussion, I thought it would be useful to set some context of what has really changed in the CFO landscape and the business landscape generally in the last 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, and it's changing so quickly that it really is every 6 months. There's pretty major stuff that's changing. So if we look at the broader landscape of business, there's some changing trends that have worked across businesses. So one of them is outsourcing. So previously, the model was that we do everything ourselves as a business. We run our own fleet of vehicles. We have our own warehousing. We have our own accounting system on our own servers in our own office. And there was just this idea that we need to do everything. And that has changed quite remarkably. We've seen the boom in 3PL warehousing, where you can warehouse your entire inventory, have it drop shipped by another company directly to your customer. They deal with your returns and everything. So that's completely revolutionized warehousing. We've seen courier, particularly over COVID, just completely up their game so that same-day deliveries and getting cheaper and cheaper. So now, previously, where we would run our own fleet of vehicles, we don't need to do that anymore. Or in a lot of business situations, we don't. And how this relates to accounting is that the old model was that we would have Pastel on our own server somewhere on our premises, in our own server room. And then we would do our best to try and access that remotely, even though we know some versions of Pastel, only one person can access at a time, so you have to kick somebody off. And that gave us some control, but it also came with quite a few shortfalls, and some of them were, for example, security. There might not be someone in the company that's can do all the patches on the server, can update the software. You have to do your own backups. And when the backups get rerun the next morning, they're corrupted. And so we start running into all sorts of issues, not to mention load shedding, UPS, and effectively we sort of we had to build an IT department of some kind just to run our accounting system. And because there weren't other options, that made sense. But just as when online banking came along, so we didn't have to go to the branch anymore, accounting has, in many spheres of South African businesses, sort of lagged that, and people haven't taken the opportunity, and they have some of the same fears as with online banking. Is this going to be secure enough? And so we've kind of shown that is secure, and that online banking has a place in business. So this is the broader context that CFOs are kind of caught in the middle of this, because CFOs rely on data from accounting systems and many other systems in order to do our jobs, right? So the alternative to having this server sitting in our own office that we manage is the cloud systems that did exist. So there were big enterprise systems like SAP and Oracle, and they are, for a small business, they're expensive to set up and expensive to run. And one of the tricky things was that it's a whole suite of products, and you don't have a lot of choice in terms of which parts work and which parts don't. So if you wanted, for example, to have a very agile payroll system and you wanted to use a different accounting system, you were kind of logged in. You were locked into what Oracle and SAP offer. And the last trend that I've seen change over the last 10 years is how CFOs spend so much of their time crunching numbers from different systems. And Alan's going to speak to this just now. He's sort of a specialist in data. But many of the CFOs I speak to still spend hours and hours of their month downloading Excel and CSV data from different systems, collating it manually, putting in formulas, and spending a lot of time that they could spend interpreting the data and helping the business to action that stuff in still creating these reports manually. So again, that's a big revolution that's happened, is ways for us to integrate different systems so that they give us collective reports. So that's kind of what we call, let's call the old school way. And it's not that that way is bad or good. It's that there's other opportunities, and for each of us to have a look at those opportunities that might apply in our businesses is where we can really see where the cloud-based systems and automated systems can add value to our business model. That's always where I'll start, is to do a scoping. It's no point us just looking at some systems and trying to shoehorn them into a business, but it's knowing, as a CFO, knowing what's available, what's out there, knowing which of those apply to your business, and then finding a way to introduce those into the business in a way that doesn't disrupt the business and gives you the information that you need. So just in finishing off this introductory part, I'm going to give you a vision of what the new school looks like. And this is really what Cloud Integr8 and our team does on a day-to-day basis, is businesses come to us and say, we want to explore cloud-based systems. And we'll do a scoping. And this is kind of what's available. So if you opt for a cloud-based accounting system, of which Xero is one and there's others, so it's not like there's only one choice. It takes away your server, your IT issues. They do backups, they handle the security. It's very much like an online bank. So they do all of that for you. You can access it from anywhere you like. When unusual things like COVID come along and everybody has to leave the office, you're not locked out if the server goes down. So you can access it any time of the day or night, and everybody can access it with different levels of access. So let's see that as, from a CFO point of view, that's kind of at the center of the ecosystem. And then other parts of the ecosystem that you would look at are things like payroll system. So you can find a cloud-based payroll system that integrates directly into Xero. You might have an inventory management need where you have more complex inventory that Xero can't handle. You may need to track by expiry dates, batch numbers, serial numbers, and you might need more complex costing methods. Then you find an inventory system that's cloud-based, and that information push it through to the accounting system. You have your online store, either your own one or a third-party one like Takealot or Amazon. So again, you want to get that information pulling directly into Xero. You have a CRM system where people are signing up and you are bringing their information into the accounting system so that they can be more easily invoiced. So we see that all touch points of the business can be looked at and can be integrated so that we don't have to, number one, manually move data across when it comes time to do our reports. And we avoid the kind of errors of manually moving stuff and the incredible amount of time that it takes to manually capture individuals' names from one system into the accounting system, from the accounting system into the payroll system, or whatever it is. So for me, that's the really exciting part. And once we've built our ecosystem, our cloud-based ecosystem on our terms, if one part no longer works, so say for example, the CRM system it's not working for you for whatever reason. Maybe it's not handling the volume of new people, you want different reports. You can literally plug that part of the system out, that CRM system, take it out of your ecosystem and plug in another CRM system, just making sure that it's all integrated. So instead of having to buy into a big system like SAP or Oracle, which works for a lot of big businesses, but for more agile, smaller businesses, it doesn't work. You can plug and play your pieces and build your ecosystem. So that's really the opportunity that I see. And I see more and more CFOs using that, because once you have that system in place, then you can really start leveraging the automation of your reports. You can start pulling information into the system customer churn and some stuff which is not traditional financial data, but it adds so much value to the reporting, and you can get it automated. So that's kind of the lay of the land. Thought I would do by way of introduction before we jump into panel discussion. Yeah, John, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much, Philip, for sharing that. What I really liked about what you mentioned and shared there was just around building out that ecosystem. And what I like about this solution here is just the amount of flexibility that we have with it. So I think in your much larger sort of enterprise or technology stacks, of course, we have that kind of flexibility. But what I really liked about what you said is, of course, everything being sort of cloud-based. But as the business evolves and things kind of adapt and our needs potentially change, so too will the systems that we use. And we don't have to go through a very complex process. We can just sort of unplug and sort of put new resources in as well. So I really like that flexibility that it brings. So thanks a lot for sharing. I'm confident that all the CFOs on our call here today will see lots of value in that too. Georgia, I can see you are entering the room. I just want to check if have we had an opportunity to get the chat working as yet or not? I think maybe not.
That's what I'm trying to do here. So
Okay.
just ignore me.
Okay, cool. Perfect. So then I'll tell you what we'll do. So I noticed that we've got several more people who've joined us. So just want to take another opportunity to welcome you. We've just had a really interesting overview, and Philip was just really kind of setting the tone and kind of giving us an image or a picture of really what's possible, building out these ecosystems as well. We will be opening up the floor towards the end of our session here. I can see we already have people starting to raise their hands, so thank you for that. We will definitely be calling on you towards the end of our session, so please make a note of your questions for our panelists, and we'll be sure to call on you towards the end of our session here. So let's now enter into our panel discussion. So Sulene and Alan, I'm going to invite you back on camera, please. And let's continue the conversation here. So again, we have Philip Funzel, who's joining us from Cloud Integr8. We have Sulene Botha, who's joining us as the CFO from SimpleBooks. And then we have Alan Gibbon, who is the CFO over at Larasoft. So again, please make a note of any questions you might have for our panelists, and we'll definitely be addressing them towards the end of our session here today. So as we've already kind of started looking at and unpacking this idea that small and medium-sized companies can also benefit from the really enhanced features, which is traditionally only offered by large-scale ERP products or technology stacks. Now, what we're finding is that by accessing these services as needed from the marketplace, we now have the flexibility in which we're able to do that. So I think just to kind of get the ball rolling here, I'd like to find out from each of us here, please, maybe if you could just kind of explain what your world looks like and how you fit into an ecosystem like this. So Sulene, I think we'll come to you first, if that's okay. And maybe you can share, I don't know, let's talk about some of those opportunities. So what are some of the new opportunities that this kind of real-time integrated systems are bringing to CFOs like yourself from an advisory point of view?
Thanks. Yeah, this is such an exciting question because these systems are a game changer for CFOs. CFOs are responsible for the strategic decision of companies that they represent. Yet, additionally, our decisions are based on outdated information or our best estimate of uncertain future events. So, however, with this real-time integrated systems, it gives us a holistic view of all aspects of the business in real time. So we can respond to threats before they impact us severely. We can identify and grab opportunities faster, and we can turn our weaknesses into strengths. So from an advisory point of view, these systems allow us to assess at any given time where we are, where we want to be, and how to get there by developing a detailed action plan for the various parts of your business and assigning the resources that you have available to each step to ensure that your plan gets actioned. And probably most important, it gives you the opportunity to be very flexible and adjust, as things change in your business.
Yeah. I really like that idea. That's one of the key takeaways from what Philip was mentioning earlier, just around that sort of that flexibility that we now have, but most importantly, getting a real kind of live update of where we're at in this current moment. Yeah, so that's really great. And then, Sulene, I just want to check if you're still with us. It looks like you might have frozen. Okay, no problem. All right, so we'll come back to Sulene in just a moment. So then, Alan, let's shift gears here. So we're going to invite you into the conversation now whilst we're waiting for Sulene to come back. So as you look at how CFOs can get the most out of the platforms they're using, let's think about some of the things. So it's interesting. So the idea that just because you have something doesn't mean you're using it. And this is kind of what Philip was alluding to or saying earlier, that we can kind of plug in and we have lots of and use the different tools or resources as we build out those ecosystems. So could you perhaps share with us maybe how does your current ecosystem look like? What does your intervention improve usage and outcomes as well?
Great, yeah, cool. So yeah, just to just pick off the back of what Philip was saying in the intro, is if you think of your organizational systems like being a little bit like a Rubik's Cube, and the sales pitch of one centralized system is every side's perfect, right? And then your reality is more like this once you get going. And so the idea is, like Philip was saying, you have this ability to say, well, this particular color is going to be that solution provider. That's going to be a different solution provider. And so what we do as a business is we help you just bring together through automated reporting, etc., the aspects that you want. And so from a CFO point of view, you might be looking at all the sides, but as a head of production, you might just be looking at the white side. And then actually, as a line manager within that team, you might just be looking at those 4 white dots. And so what we do is we help to, through a process of automation, just give you your 4 white squares that you need on a regular basis to make your role meaningful. And so we try to give you actionable information at the level that you need it for your role. And so that's how we team, always leaning back to a central data source and helping CFOs and other high-level team members not have to become export to Excel specialists.
Yeah, brilliant. So you can definitely start sensing and seeing both the flexibility within the tools, but most importantly, also just the amount of time that's going to be saved by removing or eradicating these kind of, I won't say redundant, but maybe very manual or labor-intensive process, exporting to CSVs, kind of working through the data manually like that. So yeah, I really appreciate the flexibility that this ecosystem brings in. So great, thanks. And I think we'll all remember that analogy of the Rubik's Cube as well moving forward, Alan. So thanks for painting that very kind of clear picture for us.
Cool.
Okay, Sulene, let's see if your audio is working again. Let's test that. Are you good to go?
Yes.
Okay, awesome, perfect. So I'm going to invite you back into the conversation now again, and just to kind of give everybody here a clear and maybe a real-time picture, perhaps you could share some more examples of sort of non-traditional data points that can be effectively used by CFOs in their role as sort of company advisors.
Sure. So I think to look at it is a bit more. It allows CFOs to be a bit more creative, or to get a bit more creative in planning their strategy.
Yes.
So this links very well to the action plan I was referring to. I hope you heard most of that conversation. But when CFOs look at key numbers that drive most businesses, being revenue, gross profit, operating profit, revenue per employee, and your cash days, they can start asking relevant questions about each of these sets or sections, whatever you want to call it, that effectively becomes your action plan. And then you can use non-traditional data points to help them answer these questions and kind of develop a strategy. So, for example, for revenue, they might ask, how can we sell more to our existing customers?
Okay.
And then they look at customer reviews on their e-commerce sites, or on their social media pages, or they can create customer surveys very specific to their current customer base. Or for gross profit, they might ask, what technology are we currently using in our business, and is there a gap? And then again, they can look at similar companies in the industry that is outperforming them, because normally they can literally go onto their websites. It's available what they're using, the systems that they are using, and that can kind of put them into a direction of doing more research of those specific systems. So I can get into a lot of details of each of these sections, but it's really about to formulate that action plan. You start asking questions, and I think the system, because it takes away a lot of the processing time, we for the first time in many years actually have time to start delving deeper into these kind of deeper questions. And yeah, it's a great opportunity for all of us to become more strategic.
Definitely. Yeah. And I can see how we'll have the time flexibility in which we can do that as well. So that's, really powerful enhancements. It's a great use case as well. So thank you for sharing those two examples with us as well, Sulene. Much appreciated. All right, Alan, we're going to come back to you. So perhaps you could share with us also, like Sulene's just done, some kind of real world examples of how you've kind of taken things to the next level with regards to the information, and maybe sort of how do you go about assessing the data and just sort of changing things for the business?
Yeah, great, cool. So generally what happens when people migrate from an existing solution, taking Philip's earlier example, an on-premise accounting system, moving into a cloud solution, what often when I get involved at a data level, what I've seen is that someone's just used an import wizard, and so you might be moving away from that system because it doesn't hold your ability to tag your data at a cost center or division or region or revenue stream level. And so guys have done a hack of, like, let's say you work regionally, and so you've got a Joburg office and a Cape Town office, and you've got 100 expense accounts, and so you've got Joburg and Cape Town, so you now have got 200, and then you add in KZN, and now you've got 300 accounts. So you go, that's terrible. You're going to move to a cloud solution like a Xero or equivalent that's got tracking capabilities or tagging capabilities. So now you only need the 100, right? And then you just tag Cape Town, Joburg. We often find that a lot of guys actually still replicate KZN, Joburg, Cape Town, etc., back into the chart of accounts. And that's where, just off the bat, working with an organization like Philip's organization, where they actually understand the impact of a migration and the ability to clean up, is awesome. So you always want to get like a really strong certified implementer that goes, and I loved what Philip said right up front about asking questions and not just squishing a person or business into a solution. So that is great. Because when we get to the data side, and we now typically where we get involved is they're like multiple legal entities. You want to bring them together. And a lot of these source systems like Xero, etc., are great at single entity reporting. And so we bring it all together. Might be multi-currency, so we also morphing it into group currency, etc., so that you get a centralized view in whatever ZAR or dollars or whatever it is. And at that point, we apply like a mapping process. So you've got the freedom to have distinct subsidiaries within your group that operate in a very specific way that's meaningful to that local leadership and management team. But at a group level, you still want to be able to know what's going on. And so we have this mapping process, which is often quite the buzz like word for large traditional ERPs, is like structured GL, centralized. That you can achieve all of that with these cloud-based solutions by bringing it together. So I am going to pop up in a little screen share and then just
go for it.
give you an example. And then I'll just take it off again and just close out the example. Just tell me if I'm taking too long.
Will do.
Cool. Can you guys see that?
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so this is a typical example where at the top left, you've got these cloud solutions. And so you can connect directly to like reporting solutions like a Power BI or a Tableau or a ClickView or whatever it is. We've kind of gone with the Power BI side. And so a lot of the technologies allow you to connect directly from the cloud solution directly into Power BI, and that's great. In other aspects, it's not as easy, and especially what Philip was saying earlier, your ability to switch out if a particular solution is not working well for you, we kind of engaged at a middle space of a reporting database where we take from the cloud solutions into the central reporting database to give you ownership of the underlying data. And if you switch out point of sale system A with point of sale system B, or online system A with online system B, you don't lose your history. It also means you don't have to squish your desktop-based accounting package into this cloud-based solution and live the limitations of the history. So you hold your business continuity historical data in here, and then you connect in, and we've got a couple of connectors, but there are lots of technologies that do what we do, and obviously you can find them in the respective marketplaces. But you basically hook in this example, could be others, multiple Xero entities, you second them in. One example that I was thought of for this call was a client had 8 legal entities across 4 continents, and for them they had 6 on Xero and 2 on another cloud solution. So we brought that all together for them here, and then it became technology agnostic. And then always there's stuff's left in Excel, right? So we just created a way to push that stuff back into SQL. And then you do a centralized reporting on top of that. And the key thing there, and I'll stop sharing, is that a lot of the systems are graded in actual level, but when you get to forecasting, etc., it's generally back to an Excel or something like that. And so what we do is we start to elevate the quality of the spreadsheet data to a database level. So you're getting more consistency and predictability out of your reporting engine, because you're working off a structured database environment that can evolve quite quickly. And then you can, like I say, build your piece of the cube that you want to see for an individual.
Nice.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, Alan. Even for someone who's less familiar with those sort of technology stacks and resources, that visual really helps kind of bring things together. And again, what I liked about that is you said you can go kind of technology agnostic. You could see the different kind of components brought in together. It just provides so much more flexibility, which is just so empowering for us as kind of finance professionals. So yeah, another great example. Thank you. Philip, we're going to invite you back to the conversation now, and you kind of spoke about some sort of add-ons or additional kind of features, but I'm keen to hear again, could you let us know perhaps some of those products that would form part of the ecosystem, but specifically from a data or reporting kind of standpoint, please?
So, I mean, from the data point of view, you have to kind of go back to the source. So what I mean is, we can look at reporting, but we need to have, for example, payroll reporting. We have to look at the original system, and only then, will the data pull through. So let me talk about some of the base systems that are available.
Sure.
And as long as they are integrated in a cohesive way, then the reporting kind of looks after itself in a way. Once we've got the data flowing, then we can engage someone like Alan to build out the system, and a lot of the systems have their own reporting. Like Xero has quite comprehensive reporting as well.
Yeah.
So you obviously start with the system's own reporting, and then you look at how can I build out the reports that aren't there, and also how can I build out reports that consolidate the system. So from the accounting side, well, you definitely want to look at a cloud-based system. I just don't see any value anymore in a desktop-based system over an accounting system, over a cloud-based. And in the market, I mean, Xero's one of the big players. There is Sage and QuickBooks and a few others. My personal preference is Xero, but the funny thing about these systems is we can get quite territorial about our system. So if you speak to someone who's been a Microsoft person their whole life, and they've gone on to Microsoft Online, they'll tell you that's the best system in the world, and when somebody who's gone on to Google will tell you that's the best. And so we get entrenched in systems. So I'm not trying to convert anybody here. And often we work, it's such a big job to change a system, like moving from Microsoft to Google, that we actually just blank it out. So one thing that the accounting systems also offers us is a direct feed with the bank. So that's really a massive use. And any accounting system should offer that. And almost all the banks in South Africa now offer feeds. What that means, you just press refresh, it pulls your bank feed into your system, no longer uploading CSVs every day. You can reconcile from the bank, and that's amazing. Second is payroll system. if you're operating in South Africa, you want to get a South African payroll system. Payroll has a lot of legal structure around it, constantly changing. So one good one in South Africa is Simple Pay. There's a few others. A good way to find these is once you've found your accounting system that you want to use. So if you are, say, going with Xero, most of them will have it's not called advisory, but kind of an integrations page. And then they list all of the other cloud solutions that integrate with them that they've checked them out and they're happy with.
Okay.
So then go and have a look at payroll and you'll see the different payrolls.
Sure.
There's one, for example, called HR Panda. I haven't had a look at it, but I think it goes into more detail than Simple Pay. You can start looking at your contracts, and Simple Pay just as simple payroll and leave. But payroll is obviously a big part of it, and we don't want to be capturing our payroll data manually through journals. It's just complete waste of time. Another one is inventory management systems. So as I mentioned earlier, most of the accounting platforms will not offer the kind of detailed level of an inventory focused business. So that could be, for example, being able to do landed cost in the way that you want to. So for those who aren't familiar with landed cost, when we import something, there's other costs associated. There's freight, there's import duty, and there's VAT on imports that's often paid by the courier company. We need to be able to separate out those invoices, allocate those import duties in a weighted way across the inventory. So some of those products that came in that container might have a 20% import duty, some might have none. So you really want the ability to be able to do that. So you're not doing these manual calculations outside of the system and then, hoping that somehow through average cost at the end of the month, we're going to do like a single journal.
Sure.
So there's great inventory management systems. One that's used quite a lot in South Africa is called CIN7, CIN7. But there's a few others. And again, you want them to be able to integrate with your accounting system. CRM is a big one. So we want to market to our customers. As Sulene was saying, maybe our strategy to increase our revenue is to make contact with our existing customers. So we can do that one email at a time, or we could have all our customers automatically pulled through to our CRM system and tagged as existing customers. And we can send a mailer to all of them at once. When someone signs up to a newsletter, we might want to pull that information through. When someone buys a product from our online store, we might want that information to pull directly through to our accounting system. So CRM is also a very valuable part of the ecosystem. And then two more I'll just touch on now. One is our online sales channels. So more and more people are selling online, both through their own websites as well as third-party sites like Takealot and Amazon. So popular websites locally are things like WooCommerce, Shopify, where you can create your own store. And then obviously the third-party ones, you want that data to be integrating with your accounting system. So your Takealot sales, how much of your inventory is sitting at Takealot is really a big thing because, that's still your inventory until it's sold.
Sure.
And then the last part is, which is becoming increasingly developed in South Africa, is payments and collection systems. So for example, if you have clients paying you a regular amount every month, you can pull that information directly. So let's say your invoices are generated on the 20th of the month. You can automatically pull all of those invoices out of your system, batch them for payment through a debit order, process those for payment. When those are paid, they'll come back and push into, say, Xero, saying these were paid and these are the ones that bounced. So just that automatically there's no need to log into your system and work out which ones bounced or which ones didn't. The invoices were taken out automatically. They were pulled in, batched. You can see unpaids, and then the same with payments. So we no longer have to go and log into a bank, manually load each payment, and then go through another level of having that released. So now there's systems that will pull in all your accounts payable. You can go through them, just tick the ones that you want to pay, and you just click pay.
Okay.
And that's it. And then you can still have your permission levels done. And then that automatically pushes that paid notification back into the accounting system afterwards. So you can see which ones were paid, which ones bounced. So these are some of the exciting things that are gaining traction in the South African and global market.
Yeah, I can definitely see why. And earlier when we were talking with Sulene mentioned that, having tools like this at our disposal allows us to be a little bit more strategic as a CFO, because now we have kind of more insights available to us, definitely more time as well. So we're going to invite you back into the conversation, both Sulene and Alan. So having more tools like this from a really powerful stack and ecosystem that we're building out, what does this allow us to kind of do differently as CFOs? Sulene, you mentioned earlier about being more strategic. What would you add to that?
Yes, I really think it's just about focusing your time on what matters, because especially when small businesses start to scale, you get lost in the chaos of all of the internal stuff that needs to happen, all of the processing, and you kind of lose focus on why you started the business in the first place, or what makes you drive, and you kind of lose your passion. So this just creates space for that, for just really focusing on what matters and what's going to improve your bottom line at the end of the day.
Okay. Yeah, so important. Thanks, Sulene. And what would you add, Alan?
Yeah, I think the main advantage, well, one of the main advantages in this is traditionally finance teams go offline for the first 5-6 working days of the month end to do a massive month end close, loads of reconciliations, etc. And you come out the end with this black box report that if anyone's got a question, you've got to go back and do days of or multiple hours of fact finding and building up supporting information. With this whole live integrated environment, what you do is you're moving more from a black box to like a fish tank environment that you can see the moving parts along the way. And most of these technologies have drill through capabilities where you can go right back from the final report back to the underlying transaction. And so just the speed of access to information, where a senior CFO type role doesn't have to be in the detail, but can get to the detail unmanned, unassisted, if needed. And then also just that self-empowerment of individuals to get access to that level of information just removes, again, a burden of report writing from the Office of Finance.
Okay, yeah. Super powerful. Thanks again, Alan. I'm just thinking about all these incredible kind of tools and plugins and resources that we have available. And Philip, this question is going to be addressed to you, and I hope it's not too much of a challenging one. But I'm thinking about our audience in mind here, and I'm going, well, I might be using an existing technology stack, and it sounds like there's lots of different tools and resources available to us. But in my mind, I think, well, is there not going to be an excessive amount of maybe training or upskilling that's required to be able to use all of these different tools that we're now kind of plugging into one ecosystem? Because we can kind of adapt things and rewire into our system, but it sounds like we've got all these different tools coming in now. So how are we going to ensure that we're proficient in actually getting the data and the insights that we might need?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it comes down to change management, really. And so what I've learned from having done this for a long time is that a lot of this, the success of an integration, either from scratch or changing parts of a system, is working with the individuals.
Sure.
Listening to them. Mostly they are overworked and overwhelmed with their current systems. They're not given any new time to integrate the new system. So you've got to kind of see it like implementing any new business system. It just creates a massive shock in the system. And I think the trick is not to underestimate what that is. So there's some things we can do to mitigate that. And that is, well, one of them is not to introduce the systems all at once, to kind of stagger them. Another big thing is what we do is we create a software champion for each of the software. So for example, on the accounting system, who's going to be the person who adds and removes and edits user access?
Okay.
Because if those things are not handled, then people start getting really upset because the system doesn't work. And so once you've got the system in place, you still need people to manage it. Who's going to be responsible for making sure that the bank feed is always working? Who's going to be responsible for the users? Who's going to be responsible for certain things? And so by giving people specific responsibility and specific training to do that, that helps quite a lot. Then not everyone feels the burden of running each of the systems. So that's something that's really helped. And the second is just, if something is, do a scoping first, see where the low-hanging fruit is, and start with that. Just start off with as few systems as you can, get them working, and then sort of add to them gradually. But it's very similar to any other business change. It's tricky, and it's always underestimated in terms of the time it takes, how much it's going to cost, and the impact on everybody.
Okay, thanks for that, Philip. And we are going to, we'd like to welcome some questions from our attendees as well. So please go ahead and put some questions in the chat. And Kaylin's actually brought something up that I wanted to ask as well. So myself as a finance professional or a CFO who's on the call here today, I'm keen to hear from the three of you, please, because we've all been really involved in this in depth. And what would be a good starting point? So, what would be the next kind of obvious first move or next steps? What would we think? Perhaps we can start with you, Alan, then we'll come to Sulene, and we'd love to hear from you as well, Philip.
Okay.
Yeah, great. I think Philip did talk to this a little bit, but I think the biggest thing is around like, where's the pain at the moment? I think if you change anything that's like, hey, I saw now the latest Gartner quadrant or whatever it is, and this is in the top right hand corner, so it's a good thing to change.
Yes.
Would be the wrong way. I know a friend of mine is on the C-suite of a listed entity in South Africa, saying that most often when they go to these conferences, guys are buying the most expensive top right Gartner stuff to cover themselves, because if the project fails, it's not them, it's obviously something else. So you're not changing for change's sake or to look better. You're changing because you're not meeting a business need right now, and it's getting to the point where that particular aspect of technology is stopping you from meeting your strategic objectives. If it's not broken, don't change it, kind of thing, would be my thing. And although we got a aspect of our business is software development, the best code to write is no code at all. So you want to only change when things are not achieving what you wanted to achieve.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Alan. What did you add to that, Sulene?
Yeah, well, yes, same thing. Basically, just to identify what is wasting my time at the moment, and get your employees involved in that kind of scenario, in that analysis. What are they spending time on that they can open up, and then doing the research of what is available in the market.
Thank you very much. And Philip, you kind of touched on a few of these ideas earlier. Is there anything you'd like to add to kind of starting points or next steps around that at all?
Yeah, so I mean, let me just share something quickly.
Yeah, sure.
So if anybody wants to get in touch with either of any of the speakers, you can just scan that QR code on your phone, put in your name, email address, and then just tick the person you want to speak to. But all three of us are open to having a conversation and just discussing your needs. Mine is really around the system and questions you've got around the system that you have and what could add value to that. I've had the experience of Sulene doing a session with me in terms of she consults to CFOs and also as an outsourced CFO to businesses, taking those data points and creating a strategy around them. Super valuable and quite amazing technologies that she's developed there. And Alan, on the now we've got all these amazing systems, how do we get data that gives us back the first 5 days of the month? And rather spend those 5 days growing your business and not crunching numbers.
Thanks. Thank you so much. I think that definitely gives us a good starting point. So while we're waiting for a few more sort of questions to come into the chat, there were a couple I noticed just a moment ago. So I'm just keen to hear from you. So there was one here around security risk. So say, for instance, I am a finance professional or CFO who maybe isn't using sort of cloud software or technologies at the moment. What are some of the security risks that I maybe need to be aware of or conscious of as we kind of look to move to the cloud? What would you say, Philip, Alan, and Sulene?
Yeah, I could take that. So I think we had the same questions when online banking came along,
Okay.
and businesses resisted it because everyone's going to steal our money, and people do steal our money. But the same kind of protection exists on almost all of the systems. So the chances of the systems being hacked is far less than if you're doing it on your own server as a non-professional, not knowing how to do all of the patches, all the security patches, how to back up your data in a secure way. So the question is, how secure is yours at the moment? And it's a very good question to ask. If you are looking at any cloud system, you want to have a look at their security protocols. It's a good question to ask them all, and the best ones have pretty standard ones, pretty good ones. So like two-factor authentication, we use that on almost all of our systems. So that's just an additional. All the users need to have that on their phone. As they put in their password, it just pops up, and they need to authorize it. So there's stuff that you can do independent of the systems, and then you also want the systems to be robust. But really, security is far better handled in the cloud than you trying to do it on your own server in the office, unless that's your core business.
Okay, thanks for that. Anything you want to add to that, Alan or Sulene? That was pretty comprehensive. Okay, good stuff. So I've seen a question in the chat from Tatiana asking about changing systems every few years, and we heard the comment earlier about if it's not broken, don't fix it. So Tatiana, if you can just provide us with maybe a little bit more context there, and we'll revisit your question in just a moment. And then there was another sort of question or comment around with all these different systems that are pulled together and this ecosystem we're building out. A couple of questions here. So number one is, who would own that kind of integration? So who would be involved with that? And then the second would be, well, if we've got all these different tools and plugins available, in the event that something goes wrong, who's going to fix that, or who's going to troubleshoot that? Who'd like to take that one? Thanks, Alan.
Cool. Yeah, so I think the first thing around if you're working with, for example, a Xero, and you integrating directly with the apps that are in the marketplace, then what you're doing is you're working with certified integrations. And so from that point of view, there's already a trusted and tried relationship. If you're working within a custom integration point of view, then what you need to do is, it's the strength of, there's this thing called Open API. And it's about how these things shake each other's hand, and there's often security keys and bearer tokens that expire every 15 minutes or 60 days or whatever, depends who the provider is. So often those point-to-points are happening by the vendors themselves. So like in Philip's example, Simple Pay and Xero would have a trusted relationship with each other, and if that integration breaks, then Simple Pay would resolve their integration with Xero. As an internal team member, you then don't have to have a senior internal technology team, IT team. Okay. You're going to have more like business users being able to engage with those respective vendors. And like Philip said, you got application champions internally, but you don't necessarily have to become a certified application specialist to be able to maintain your business. And then, yeah, just in terms of the second question, if you wanted to just rephrase that, if I haven't answered that, the follow-on question, or do you think I?
Yeah, no, you covered it there, so that's great. Thanks, Alan. It was just around sort of who owns the integration, and you've mentioned that already, so that's perfect. Thank you so much.
Cool, but maybe just to add one sentence to say, each integration generally has, as a general rule, there's generally a master. Like if there's a conflict, somebody wins, and so when you're setting those up, you need to understand. And when you're looking with these cloud integrations, part of the process is to understand what the business rules of integration are, and they're generally quite well explained. And then as long as you know that, the internal users can own that quite nicely.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. That definitely gives us better perspective. Now, I see there's a question in the chat from Louis Nordia, and this might go back to the tags that we're talking about, Philip. It's Louis asking, what is the best way to set up different departments, cost centers, without creating separate entities? So I imagine it's more of a technical back-end question, but perhaps we can help Louis with that one.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So the dimensions in Louis' question are the chart of accounts and tracking categories and then entities. So the only time you'd want to create different Xero instances, let's call it, is if you have different registered businesses. That's most of the time. There are some exceptions, but generally, if you've got a business, you want to have one Xero account. I'm just using Xero as an example because I know it well. And then in your chart of accounts, what Alan spoke about earlier is if you've got office expenses, you don't want to, the opportunity is just to have that once with a single cost code, office expenses, and then you set up what's called a tracking category, and the category would be office location, and you'd have KZN. And then every journal, purchase, sales invoice can be tagged with that. Okay. And so you can pull a general, profit and loss for across the whole business, and then you can also sort of segment them out into the different sections like that. But that's it. And that often takes a bit of working because you might already have created those hundreds of charts of accounts. So then you'll need to consolidate those, take out the word KZN, Cape Town, do some work, in terms of the reports, set up the tracking categories. And then again, good data means, you've got to get the data in properly. So then people must be trained in terms of making sure the person doing journals must tag those journals. It's just a little drop down and all the sales invoices, etc. So yeah, that's the simplest way to do it.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks, Alan, Philip, and Sulene. So we've got about 2 minutes left of our discussion here this morning. So in a moment, we're going to ask you just what's a tip that you would share with other finance professionals here, just in a very short and sharp one kind of tip or idea that you would share with other finance professionals before we wrap up our call here. So what's a final kind of bit of information you'd like to share? Let's start with Alan, and then we'll go to Philip and Sulene. Or yeah, go for it, Alan, Philip, and then Sulene.
Great, cool. Yeah, I would just say be willing to be wrong and engage the area leaders in your business and let them lead where it goes from a what's valuable point of view. You don't have to have the answers, but you can get the answers. Okay,
good stuff. Thanks. Confidence in failing. I like that. Thanks, Alan. Let's go to Sulene next.
Yes, on that, there's really anything that can't be fixed. So even if you fail, it can be fixed, and then embrace the change. Don't be scared to try new things.
Nice. Thank you so much. And Philip, let's hear from you.
What I see is that the role of the CFO has become expanded, and the opportunity is to get involved more in terms of the technology being used by the business. Instead of being the person that everyone throws data at and says, fix this, start pushing back and getting involved in the business and just educate yourself, and then take on the role of educating other people in your company, because it'll really benefit you if they stop throwing data at you and work with you in getting the best systems in place.
Nice. Thank you so much. So I think it's pretty safe to say that we've all learned a lot here this morning, and I feel really kind of empowered about the incredible resources and the flexibility within the resources that we have available to us. So Alan, Philip, and Sulene, I'd like to thank you for joining us in conversation here this morning. And of course, thank you so much to Xero. We really value and appreciate this partnership with CFO South Africa. And of course, thank you everyone for joining us here this morning. Thank you for your insightful questions and comments in the chat. It's been an absolute pleasure working with everyone, and we look forward to seeing you in another online session soon. So I think you know the drill. For the next lot of webinars, go to cfo.co.za/events, and you'll see all the other upcoming events as well. So if we didn't get a chance to answer your question, we'll make sure that we get a response out to you. So thank you once again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you online again soon. Take care, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.